healthy relationship with food is usually a signal that our lives are out of balance. We are eating or restricting for emotional reasons. So this presentation will look at tools to restore balance and some joy to our lives. I will now turn the time over to our Overeaters Anonymous representative, Laura Swan.
Well, hello, everyone, and thank you for your patience. Technology is not my strong suit, and that's okay. I'm in the last third of my life. I don't have to be up on all of this stuff. And I found it interesting that today at noon, I met a young woman, early 20s, who has released over 200 pounds. And she has a bit more to go, but she was sharing a bit of her story. And it's the very sort of thing I would want to talk amongst us today, which is she didn't look at dieting. That's a nasty 4-letter word. Diets basically rarely ever work except for the rare normal person who managed to put on 10 or 15 pounds and can easily take it back off again. But for those of us who struggle with food, either eating too much, eating too little, or other food behaviors that are very bad for our health and also especially for our mental and emotional health. She said, I began by just looking at my lifestyle and I started making some lifestyle choices. And then I realized I had some mental health issues I needed to work on. And she began working on some mental health issues in her life. And she said, then I just found myself less and less interested in food and more interested in some of the things in my life that I wanted to give more energy and time to. She, in fact, has an absolutely gorgeous singing voice. And she went back to university and she is wrapping up her 4-year degree on singing opera and jazz. So her story is a story that I would also share, for myself and then for others. She began by basic lifestyle changes, going to bed earlier, getting up earlier, of deciding she was going to go outside and walk in nature for a bit each day. She started thinking about what it is that she wanted to do with her life. She apparently has had struggles all throughout her teen years, which is not unusual. And if we don't get help, it ends up becoming a lifelong challenge for a lot of us. She said, and then it was really down the road that she started thinking about how much she was eating and what she was eating. And she began by simply changing slowly what she was eating away from junk food, highly processed food, as she tells her own story, to healthier foods. And then from there, realized she was eating less and less because she was more interested in her life. So there was kind of an internal shift. And that's what we in Overeaters Anonymous kind of focus on. And I kind of hate the title because we do have anorexics and bulimics, which is another form of an eating disorder sitting in our midst. But that's the longstanding title, so that's what it is. But we journey together. There is no plan of eating. Nobody tells you what to eat, how to eat, but we share what works for us. But really, we're looking at emotional and spiritual reasons. And when I talk about spiritual, I'm not talking about any one faith tradition. We have every gamut in the rooms. And for a lot of people, it's a struggle to define. They use the term in the 12-step world, higher power. Who is that divine presence for you in your midst? And for some people, that's a real struggle, either because they get mentally too much caught up into trying to understand a concept, which in the 12-step world, we're really looking at a power that's beyond ourselves, that help us move beyond ourselves to something greater. For other people, they grew up in homes where God, however that's defined, was used as a controlling mechanism and really quite abusive. And so I've joked that some of them need a legal separation from the God of their childhood and await for the divine presence, the whatever beyond themselves to emerge in their own life. And that can take a time. It can take a while, and that is okay. Am I an emotional eater? Almost all of us who have an unhealthy relationship food, whether it's any of those three or other forms of doing crazy things around food or relating to food in a crazy way. Um, Almost always it's based on emotional eating or starving or spiritual, but really it's more emotional. The spiritual supports healthier emotional connections to one another, which therefore means also to food. Um, do, Normal people might have the occasional moment with stress or grief where they might find themselves indulging in something. But when it becomes a day in and a day out battle with food, I hate it, I love it, I hate it, I love it. It's controlling my life. It's coming between me and my relationships. It's coming between me and any capacity for vulnerability with close friends, a spouse, someone we're dating. When it comes between the two, that's a signifier that maybe food has control over me, instead of me having control over how much I eat, when I eat, how I eat. And we do talk about food behaviors, not just the actual consumption of food itself. Um, and we do have a great sense of humor amongst each other in terms of our first go-to is to think about food. I'm going to meet a friend for the evening. First thing we're thinking about is, oh, should we meet for food? We have just a certain humor about that. That humor is healthy, while also at the same time taking seriously um, our desire for sanity. For me, in my own story, I was always defined myself as a grazer. It wasn't that I ate a whole lot at any one time to make myself sick. And some people do have those stories when they come into the room. For me, it was more like it was rare that there was a time in between my consuming something all throughout the day and into the evening. And I knew that part of it was emotional, but I didn't know what to do with that. I didn't know what my tools, what I could do about that. And I accidentally found myself sliding backwards into the doors of OA. That's how I jokingly tell my story. And then coming to hear stories about how um, people were able to attend to the emotional causes of their eating. As we become aware of it, then we can start making changes, and we share with one another the things that help work with us. We usually suggest we get on a plan of eating, whatever that is for you. Again, we don't tell people what that is, but 3 meals a day, nothing in between, or 3 meals a day and one snack, or for diabetics, 4 smaller meals a day. The key for that is listen to your doctor, or if your doctor sends you to a nutritionist, or if you choose to go to one, which is a really good tool, whatever plan they create with you, that's your plan of eating, that's your abstinence. We say abstinence in Overeaters Anonymous. Alcoholics Anonymous will say sobriety. Am I sober? And in some ways we could also say that in OA as well. It's just what the traditional word was. That usually starts to reveal, if you weren't aware beforehand, what the emotional causes of the overeating or the starving, which is usually about control. Well, it's all about control, but we don't have control over our lives. And so we have these great sayings like let go and let God, and one day at a time. And, it really is practically true. When I landed in the rooms, what I came to discover is that there were aspects of my life out of control that I actually had no control over, meaning I had a couple of difficult relationships at work that were kind of driving my eating. There were a couple of relationships at home that were a challenge, and that was driving a lot of my eating. And when I started living with a food plan that was sane and healthy, and I've never really been a junk food eater, but still you can be overweight while eating healthy. Um, People in the room gave me ideas on how to deal with the people in my life that were driving me to eat, which is I could only take care of my side of the street. So disengaging and trying to stop controlling their behavior, but deciding what were healthy boundaries for me and backing off if things were getting a little too harried in my department and or here at home. Um, exercise has always been an important part of my life, even when I was quite overweight. And I just kept that up. And it was hard during COVID, I admit, but I kept that one up. And for people who have never exercised, um, getting out walking every other day, even if it's for just 20 minutes as a start, is really healthy. And especially if you can be around nature and breathe in nature, really is true. I know there can be some woo-woo talk out there, but there really is scientific evidence that we humans need nature way more than nature needs us. But it helps calm nerves. It helps us get in touch with ourselves. It just has a calming effect. I then needed to address another piece that I didn't realize was a problem, and that is insomnia. Um, and I worked with a counselor who specializes in insomnia, and we refer to working with a counselor, exercising, other things as tools of the program, actions we can take to help us maintain our abstinence and maintain a healthy relationship with food as opposed to an unhealthy relationship with food. And that counselor helped me change some evening. I already had very clean sleep, preparation for sleep. There's a term for that, but mine was already clean. But she noticed some things that I was doing, and she said, well, this is going to have to change, and this is going to have to change. And I discovered valerian root. If any of you don't know that, it's a great herbal thing that helps calm my mind in the evening. It doesn't put me to sleep. It's not a sleeping pill, but it helps slow down, calm down my mind at night. And instead of living on 3 to 4 hours of sleep a night, as I did for 15 or 20 years, now it is normal for me to have about 7 hours of solid, uninterrupted sleep at night, which has been unheard of since the advent of menopause. And that really has helped support my healthy relationship with food. And there is no problem with enjoying your food. In fact, we're pretty clear in the rooms that if you're eating things you hate, that's part of an unhealthy relationship with food. Unless your nutritionist says you have to eat that particular thing because you have a particular health situation. But otherwise, we do encourage one another to make a priority the foods that we actually enjoy eating, but we also encourage one another to move towards whole foods, real foods, away from refined foods, which any nutritionist would be encouraging us to do, because refined foods perpetuate kind of that the mouse on the treadmill that goes around and around and around. There is something about the way foods are highly processed that actually perpetuates that inner sense of anxiousness or the mind running at 50 miles an hour. Eating a fresh piece of fruit for a snack rather than any of that high, but it's also addictive. I mean, let's be honest, a lot of that stuff really is addictive. And so we oftentimes need encouragement from one another to break away from highly refined foods and back towards healthier, wholesome foods, which can also taste very good. There are a lot of great recipes out there on how to fix things that are very healthy, very interesting, enticing, if you like spicy or hot or whatever. That's not the issue. The issue is the stuff that makes us ravenous, that makes our brain run around. If you find yourself constantly reaching out for highly processed foods, there's probably something else going on. And we have a great saying that I've always found helpful. It's, the acronym is HALT, H-A-L-T. Am I too hungry, too angry, too lonely, or too tired? Too hungry, if you find yourself going long periods throughout the day and then all of a sudden you just have to eat because your blood sugars have dropped and you just haven't eaten all day long, that's when we're susceptible to eating way over. If I'm angry, I obviously need to look at, with a friend, with a wise person, why I am angry, what it is I'm angry about. There's usually a call behind the anger. It might be about needing to resolve a conflict with someone in your life. It might be a call to do an act of justice. We are in a dangerous time right now. I am not picking on Republican or Democrat, conservative or liberal, but the media out there is all about selling advertising space. And if we get hooked on toxic media, regardless what neighborhood it is, not good for our mental health, therefore not good in our relationship with food, because it might drive us to reach out for things to that under the guise of that's going to help me calm down. Well, of course, it never does. Am I too lonely? Get out walking with a friend, call a family member, um, go visit grandchildren, nieces, nephews, do whatever you need to do to turn the lonely a bit around. And maybe you have a friend or a coworker you can even talk to about that, about what is the loneliness about and what it is that needs to shift or change. And again, that's where a counselor could be a really good resource or tool. My big one is tired. I came into program totally unaware that I was a workaholic. And part of my problem is I'm passionate about what I do, and what it is I pursue, which is restoring women to the stories we tell. So amongst other things, I am a writer and a published author, but I can't save the world. And I guess I was trying to save the world, and I was just on this crazy cycle and I would get tired and I would show up to a mealtime and I would just be so tired. I just grabbed the first easiest thing there was to eat. Um, and one of the things we learn to do for those of us with an unhealthy relationship is we generally pack our lunches, not if we don't have a place that serves healthy food, maybe you do, but if you work in a place with that healthy options are not available, you're worth the while of in advance packing your lunch, packing something to eat on the way home, preparing meals. For years, I was great at fixing large pots of things I like and then freezing it into smaller portions and throwing it into the freezer so that I can pull it out the night before. And when I came home from work the next day, we had something to eat, and it was something I made and something I liked. And weekends usually were a better time to do that kind of cooking. It's giving yourself permission to take care of yourself. Some people naturally do that in a healthy way, but many of us don't, and especially in this day and age. And if you're journeying with aging parents and young kids or teenagers, and then you're working full time, and maybe you're trying to volunteer at something you care about, we can be utterly exhausted. And looking at lifestyle, and I've told people over and over again, use your calendar like a shield to defend yourself. I've got a shield here, defending yourself from the onslaught of the enemy, which is running ourselves ragged and not taking care of ourselves. Use your calendar to mark a date with yourself for when you're going to get out walking or going to the health club. And when are you going to do some backup cooking that you can toss into the freezer for emergency meals when you don't have the time to come home and fix something. And when are you going to have play with friends, play with spouses, play with your kids time? When are you going to go visit your parents and see how they're doing? Unfortunately, I buried mine young, but I've watched a lot of people journeying with aging parents, and seen those that do it well and seen those who have uh, been run ragged because of lack of foreplanning. And it's never 100% with aging parents. We know that. Even with teenagers, it's never 100%. We can only do the best we can and then trust the rest of the process. You're worth taking this time to think. You're worth the time of this pre-planning, even if you're not an overeater, even if you don't have an unhealthy relationship with food. You are worth the time to plan meals, plan exercise, plan playtime. It's important to have playtime, and I mean play that like fills up your soul. Um, you're worth it, and so to plan that into your calendar over the course of days and weeks and months, and let that be a part of how you spend some quiet time in the evening. I'm actually going to encourage you to think about, do you cultivate any time for silence? It might be if you go out walking alone, but without something in your ears, listening to music or listening to a book, unless that's very relaxing for you. But, when do you take time to hear the birds? When do you take time to watch the squirrels do their gymnastics? They are, of course, the ultimate yoga instructors. When you take time to do something like that and just listen to the breeze, listen, it's just 10 minutes. I'm not talking about all day, although all day sounds great, but it can just be a short amount of time that you give yourself time to allow that. I love to go down to Percival Landing and sit. I might walk the lake too, but walk to the end of Percival Landing, sit on one of the benches and watch the sunset. It's a wonderful time. There might be some kids playing in the background, water lapping up on the boat. Sometimes the boat goes putt-putt by. I watch the seals in the water frolicking around. They're always showing off, of course. But just to sit and watch a sunset, someplace that works for you, that is close to you. But you listen to your inner self and, be honest with yourself about when you reach out for food. Is it a good time, an appropriate time? Or, there's the other side of the picture. How controlling are you over consuming food? Are you afraid of putting on weight? Are you weighing yourself twice a day? I say this tragically because my older sister, who's since gone home to God, was clearly anorexic, and she got down to 88 pounds when she was 5'7". I mean, it was really bad and it was really serious, but she lived with a constant fear that if she took one too many bites, she would put on weight. So she was addicted to that scale and constantly watching it. Really very tragic, because it usually also flows over into other areas of your life when you are dealing with anorexia. And that's such a tough one that I would say you not only come join us in the rooms, but probably you're working with a counselor who specializes in anorexia or bulimia, because there are some more interior things, emotional things that you need to attend to. It's not that those of us who are overweight have it easier, but in some ways we do. I used to eat every meal as if it was my last meal. That is so true. I mean, that sounds very, very familiar. Eating, some of my eating behaviors that needed to change. I used to eat too fast, like the building is on fire. I didn't grow up in poverty. I didn't grow up with food scarcity. So where that came from, I don't know. Because none of my siblings eat that fast. I don't now. I learned the art of putting the fork or the spoon down and chatting with people at my table rather than just constantly, shoving it in as if somebody's going to take it away from me. I was too often going back for seconds because I don't know what my signal was supposed to be that I'd had enough, but I didn't know what enough was like. I didn't know what it was about. I no longer eat in the car, and I don't eat while watching TV, although I don't watch much anymore. But when I was watching more TV, I just don't do that anymore. Because for me personally, it's kind of mindless eating. And so I make sure that if I'm traveling long distances by car, I use those rest stops that were created for us and have packed my food in advance and pull over and actually eat with awareness. Some of you may be familiar with Thich Nhat Hanh, the great Buddhist monk from Vietnam. He went home to God a year or two ago, but he used to talk about mindfulness and how Americans just live too much of our life without mindfulness. We're not vacuuming while we're vacuuming. We're not washing dishes while we're washing dishes. He said, a good meditation process is to notice as you are eating what you are eating and enjoy your food and don't be in a hurry. Take a breath between each bite. For me, it was about slowing down, practices of slowing down and not speeding up. I had to break that habit, which I did do. And I continue to be mindful of it, that I don't want to be eating way too fast. Just reading some of these. Yeah, there's another one. Some of your comments here. Again, I did not grow up in poverty, but I was always applauded for cleaning my plate. Well, what did that do? I wanted more applause when I was a little kid, especially someone who was always in trouble for talking during class. I would then clean my plate, and I don't have to clean my plate. First of all, I now watch how much I put on to make sure when I'm done, I'm done. I'm not continuing to eat when I'm no longer hungry because I have to clean my plate. That's one of those things that we heard, at least I heard growing up. I may be quite a bit older than all of you, but you need to clean your plate. Think of the starving children in India was kind of the line that was out there. It's like, yeah, there's a cute one about, yes, walking your dogs are great. You think you're walking your dog, but they're actually walking you. So let them walk you out there. I would recommend every other day, if not every day. Life is busy, life is full, but every day, every other day. If you don't go to a health club, if you're a health club goer, that's another bailiwick, and that's great too. I have years of lifting weights, but getting out there every other day is a good, reasonable plan. You can start with 10 or 15 minutes, and you can build it up from there. Again, you're going to make a date with yourself on your calendar and maybe with a few friends to get out walking, because sometimes walking with a friend is a great way to make sure you are each holding each other accountable. Again, it does have positive impact on improving your relationship with food. But if you're thinking about it all the time, I think one of the reasons I don't watch television anymore, I watch DVDs or something, is the sheer number of food commercials out there. So all of a sudden, the food I've never heard of before I got into the rooms, all of a sudden I had a craving for it. And it's like, this is crazy, but maybe we need to really curtail. I don't know if you can do it on your TVs, but I know you can mute your television, but maybe you need to turn away whenever the commercials come on and then swing back when the show comes back on again that you happen to be watching. I overate for boredom, looking at comments here, as if food really is not about entertainment, although we do encourage people to eat food that you enjoy. It really is about nourishment. It's about taking care of our bodies and our health. And bored would be another one of those reasons that I had for both cooking and for eating. My mother was a very gifted chef, but she wasn't an overeater. I was the overeater in my family. Well, two of us plus one who was anorexic. So 3 of the 5 did not have a healthy relationship with food, and we're all doing much better now. But eating out of boredom, eating because you're anxious, eating because you're afraid, eating because you're angry, eating because you're lonely, eating mindlessly. Some people come to the rooms and say, one of the things I'm learning about myself is I didn't realize how often I was eating. All of a sudden, I'd look down at my hands and realize I had a food group in my hand, and I don't even know how it came there. That's heard of oftentimes also in the rooms of AA as well. Drinking and not realizing how much they drunk or how the drink got into their hands to begin with. There is kind of a disconnect, can be, for people who have an unhealthy relationship with food or alcohol or something else, kind of a blackout kind of experience that I did catch myself a few times when I first came into the rooms, realizing that I had something in my hands and I was putting it in my mouth, and I don't know why, and I don't even know where I picked it up. I mean, I did figure that part out, but conscious, being mindful, being conscious, being aware. And so one of the gifts of being in the 12-step world is growing in self-awareness, which then spills over into other parts of our lives. Don't clean up your kids' plates. We do that too sometimes. It's kind of another version of clean your plate, is cleaning up our kids' plates, because they tend naturally to just eat until they're full, till they're not hungry anymore, and then they're running off to do something else. But growing in mindfulness and self-awareness, and that's kind of the spiritual part of the program. Again, we do not encourage any one religious tradition. People who are in a tradition, that's great. We generally don't share the name of our tradition. We can, it depends on how well you know the people in your rooms, because of people who have been wounded by church. But as we grow in self-awareness, that's generally where we become aware of our, as they say, higher power, our experience of the divine, of something greater than ourselves. A tool I find very helpful is what we call the 10th step, but it's, towards the evening, if you're out getting your walk in, or you're putting kids away to bed, or you're finally sitting down for yourself, I take a review of the day. And, where was I out of touch with myself? Who might I have offended or hurt? Um, who might have hurt me? It's kind of a review of the day, because when I have hurt someone, or when someone has hurt me, that's too often excuse to eat something. Um, but we want to clean up our relationships with one another. And that's what all 12-step programs encourage, is how do we clean up our relationships with one another? We talk about making amends to people, the appropriate ones, but always we run it by someone else to make sure that we're not re-victimizing ourselves. But cleaning up those relationships, clearing the air between siblings and parents and teens and coworkers, as much as you're able to. It's never going to be perfect. Usually helps support a healthier relationship with food. And that's sort of kind of an ongoing thing that we do, because we are human, we're imperfect. Things happen, life happens. And so, making connection, usually if I catch myself right away, it's not a big issue for the other person. It's a little bit more difficult for me personally if I need to go to someone to talk about a behavior, a habit, a work thing they're doing that is causing problems for me, mostly because I don't want to hurt anyone's feelings or anything like that. And I don't like to do conflict, but I've learned to do conflict healthy. That becomes important, so that I don't want to reach out for food again. Are there any other questions here? I know we started a bit late because I don't normally do Teams. I'm familiar with Zoom, and I apologize for how long that took. I'm just reading down some of these. Oh, Gary raises a really good question here. How do I get my adult daughter to stop telling her kids they have to finish everything they were served? She is extremely overweight, and her 10-year-old is quickly surpassing merely overweight. That's really heartbreaking. And it's a challenge that pediatricians are really facing a lot right on their part. First thing is, unfortunately, we cannot change our children. You can make her aware of Overeaters Anonymous, or there's another versions besides Overeaters Anonymous, Food Addicts Anonymous. There are a number of different groups. If you Google, the names will all come up. You can give her that information and express your concern for her. But unfortunately, otherwise, you have to let go. She has her own higher power, as we would say, so that she can, she may still come to that place of desperation that she's ready to hear. You can encourage your 10-year-old. There is actually a version of Overeaters Anonymous for minor children. But you can affirm your 10-year-old, how much that 10-year-old is loved by you, and that you don't care what they look like, but that you are concerned about their health. Maybe the 10-year-old could exercise more to balance that out. You might want to talk to a family friend, if you're in a faith tradition, a minister who knows your family and the family situation. Those are just really, really tough ones. Maybe the 10-year-old can ask to be given less food. That is hard, and I'm really sorry about that one. Any other good questions out there? These have all been good. Sounds like a number of you really do have awareness of challenges in your life. You are most welcome, Grace. Are we bringing things to a close now?
Yeah, I think unless anybody has any questions, Dory's got an ending spiel, and I think we're good.
Okay, I'm just going to post a link in the chat first. This, I believe, is our feedback form. And so we would love you to take the time to just go through it, fill it out. And thank you so much, Laura, for this great information. It is a difficult topic to talk over a lot of times, and there's so much emotional, there's so much of our emotional being that is attached to what we eat, how we eat, when we eat. And I wanted to just thank you so much for this, and thank everyone who attended and everybody who participated. We would love to hear your feedback. And again, I posted that link in the chat. This was the last webinar of the day, but if you are in the Olympia area, the Wellness Fair actually finishes up with an in-person wellness fair from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. tomorrow. It's hosted by the Liquor and Cannabis Board next door and will have all sorts of vendors, including Overeaters Anonymous, plus puppy and kitten cuddle puddles, and a massage chair.
And
So
I put in 2 links for those who are interested to OA.org, which is national, and then our local group, which is the OA South Sound Intergroup.org, in case you want to look for either an online or in-person meeting.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for those resources, Laura.
And thank all of you. I hope I see some of you because I'm going to be there Thursday.
Wonderful. Thank you, everyone, and have a wonderful rest of your day.